Well, welcome to this episode of Parresia, the American Freedom Alliance's podcast. I'm Dr. Karen Siegemund. I'm delighted to be here with my friend Sam Sorbo, who has been a longtime advocate for homeschooling, for parental rights, for getting government out of where it ought not be. So, Sam, welcome. Glad to have you.
Thank you so much for having me. This is a lot of fun, and we've known each other for so long and gone in the same circles and stuff like that. So this is sort of like old homeschool week or whatever you
Uh,
call it.
Right. And actually, you've had me on your podcast. So here we go. Turnabout is fair play, as they say. And you've keynoted one of our conferences, in fact, one on free speech. So it's great. It is great to see you. Thanks so much for joining us. Uh, can you introduce yourself?
Yeah,
The things that
absolutely.
you had been working on?
I started as an actress, as a lot of people know, but then I started homeschooling my kids, and I realized that they were the most important thing to me. And then I started to understand how incredibly, I won't say broken, but perverted and inept our school system has become. I won't even call it a system of education or educational system. And then I had several epiphanies as I started doing my research and writing my books. My first book was called "They're Your Kids," an inspirational journey from self doubter to homeschool advocate. I was the self doubter. I didn't think that I could effectively homeschool my kids, even though I went to Duke for biomedical engineering. I speak 5 languages, and yet I felt entirely inept in my abilities to educate my children. That is something that is driven into us by our schooling, is this sense of ineptitude, sense of inability. Your school trains you to think you are only capable of the things that it has taught you. And so that's one of the big lies, but there are so many others. And that led me to write my most recent book, which is called Parents' Guide to Homeschool, which is a guide for parents. It's like a workbook for them to work through what their definition of education is. Because a lot of parents will tell you they send their kids to school for an education, but they really have no working definition of what that term means. For most people, it means college prep. And of course, we know that that's wrong because we don't actually believe that every child should go to college, just our kids.
Hmm.
And so like there's a lot that's wrong. And so now I've become pretty combative against the schools. I think that schools are by and large child abuse. And I don't go after teachers. I think teachers are great, but the system is geared against most kids. Most, I will say maybe 10% really thrive in that environment, but the rest of them are sort of left out in the cold. We can go into that if you want. And so then most recently, because what I realized is, so let me frame this properly.
Hmm.
School will never beat homeschool. And the metrics show that homeschoolers score roughly 25% better on all the academic tests. That's the school's metric. But if you take sort of the social metric, on the social register, homeschooled kids are more socially adept than public school children. And so they tend to do better. They tend to have better overall results as adults. They tend to integrate into society more easily than kids that just do K through 12 and then college. Lots of kids we know are graduating college unable to hold a job, much less have a career. And so there goes your college prep and career readiness sort of mantra of the schools. And the schools have recognized that. The government has recognized that, or people in the government, let's say, has recognized that. And so now we're seeing an assault on parental rights, the right to educate your children yourself, because the government can't afford, the unions can't afford the competition because it beats them on every metric. And for the inner city children, they score up to 42% better than their peers on the academic exams. And the results of the homeschool efforts have zero correlation to the level of academic training of the parents. So you can have a completely illiterate parent whose child succeeds beyond anybody's wildest imaginations, because if the parent is present with the child and engaged in helping the child teach himself, in helping the child learn. And by the way, we are all our own teachers. So that's a whole different paradigm, right? If that parent is engaged, that's the minimum. That child can soar academically. Now, between you and me, since I've been doing this, I'm not that high on the academics. I see too many people in my life who are super successful who would have gotten C's all the way through school. And we all know those people. But they have some intelligence quotient with, getting along with other people, with putting deals together, they might not run the numbers, but they can see the deal and they can put the deal together, and they're doing mighty well, never having stepped foot in a college or anything like that. And so I would say that the schools have skewed our entire view of what education should be, our entire view of what's valuable in our society. For instance, they completely devalue art, which is terrible. Devalue music, which is, of course, another form of the arts. So there's just so many problems, and there's a way around them all. Like this, the way around them is so smooth and so easy. And so that's why I wrote my book, Parents Guide to Homeschool, to smooth the road for people so that they can see that the road is clear for the alternative.
And stop listening to the lies. So, and you described the interference between the government and I don't know what else to call it. It's sort of like the education industrial complex or the education government complex that, as with all of these complexes, the goal is never the thing. It's always to get government involved. So it's breaking the bonds between parents and children. It's breaking the idea of actual education, because as you said, that's not what's happening. It's an undermining of parental confidence that starts with their confidence in terms of teaching their child, but also the academics. But I think it also undermines their confidence in parenting overall. Have you seen this?
No, absolutely. So the schools have precipitated the breakdown of the family.
Yeah.
Full stop. So you remove a child from the family at the age of 5 or 4 or 3 for pre-K or whatever, right?
And
You are
Head
breaking the
Start, younger
bonds,
still.
right? You are breaking the bonds of the child with his or her parents. And, a lot of people, if we're going to play devil's advocate and consider the arguments, well, some parents really shouldn't be parents. Okay, what do you want from me? Some schools really shouldn't be schools. Some teachers really shouldn't be teachers. Like, we can play this game all day long. But I go for ideals. I aim for the highest good, not just the median good. And the highest good is two-parent family, children with their parents, full time. That's the highest good. If you can achieve that, the rewards are beyond your imagining because you didn't grow up with it. So you can't possibly know, but I did it and I have it. And so once I realized that, when my teenagers would come I did a radio show in the mornings from 6 to 9 weekdays, which meant that I went to bed at 9 every night because I needed to, get a little bit of work done, prep for the following day, and get up at 5 a.m. And so, and I need a lot of sleep. So anyway, my husband would travel, and so I would go to bed early, all by myself. And on any given day, one of my teenagers would come into my bedroom and sit on the end of my bed and just pour out their day to me. Now, at that moment, I would realize, oh, this is a choice. You can choose to be present with your child, or you can say, hey, honey, I'm trying to get work done. And of course, I never said that. I would always, close my computer and just have the interaction with my child. And one day it occurred to me that the school was ready and willing and eager, actually, to rob me of that. That most precious, precious thing, because no tombstone ever said, wish I spent more time at the office, right?
Right.
The tombstone, that dash, is all the relationships that you've had in your life, the dash between the start and the finish.
Yes.
And that's what life's about. And, we've robbed our culture of that generational knowledge, and not just that generational, of all generational knowledge. So we don't know the solutions, the healthy solutions that our great grandparents might have practiced. Castor oil, for instance, which is like the be all and end all of healthy living or whatever. And we don't know that anymore because they wanted to sell us a pill instead. They wanted to sell us a shot instead of ivermectin, which is now going back on the national scene because of Trump, I just heard.
Yes.
And the shots are being discontinued or whatever. And somebody has gotten away with a tremendous grift on the American public. And I'm saying to you, school is a grift. That sounds so, but here's the other part of that. Because they want to have sex with your children. That's why there's porn in the schools. And that's why they're fighting. The state of Maryland, forgive me, I get a little bit emotional about this. The state of Maryland is arguing before the Supreme Court to access all the children for LGBTQ plus training, which is pornography. And if you're not aware of it, for instance, the right to have the book Pride Puppy in the schools. Pride Puppy is about a puppy that gets lost at a pride parade. And there are scenes from the pride parade featuring naked people dressed in sadomasochistic attire. And there's another scene in the book of a man with balloons tied to his genitalia.
But aren't these
But
family friendly, Sam? This is family friendly and this is educational. What
it doesn't, yes, and it doesn't stop there.
No.
So you go, well, that's just weird. Why would they like that's terrible. No, he's holding a balloon that has popped. The implication being, ooh, what if the balloons down below pop? And they're putting this in front of children because they want to have sex with your kids. And so the whole thing is now being exposed. Don't tell me we can go back to what it was. What it was gave us what we have today. If you want to go back to one-room schoolhouse where kids are copying Bible scripture, I'm with you on that. You want to go all the way back to that? I'm all for it. In fact, I'm about to interview a gal who does a one-room schoolhouse, very successful. The kids are super bright, learning everything all the time. So one of the other things that school does that is so egregious is it shuts down the curiosity of the child. The child at 5 years old or 4 years old or however old, right, enters school with tons of questions. Children are eager to learn. Why? What? How come? How many? When? What for? Right? All the questions, all the time. Like, it's annoying. Like, stop asking me questions. Don't ever say that to a child. And then the child is told, you're coming to school to learn. We're going to teach you, but we're going to teach you on our schedule. You're going to learn according to what we think is important and when we think you should know it. And so you sit there and you shut up. And if you have a question, if something occurs to you that you're curious about, you shut that down because you need permission first. And you might not get permission because the teacher might be talking about something completely unrelated. And how dare you interrupt with your petty concerns and your little wonderings. No, 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 no. You must learn the way we want you to learn. Only that way. That's child abuse.
Hearing you describe it this way, which is completely accurate, when you think about it, it is completely heartbreaking, and it is child
Yes,
abuse.
it
And
is.
and this is government schools, public schools. I know you don't talk about private schools particularly. Do you have a sense that they're any different?
I wish that I did, but of course by and large, the private schools have modeled themselves after the government schools.
That's
They,
right.
by and large, hire teachers from the teaching colleges. And so it's very difficult to determine, unless you go and sit in your child's classroom every day, to determine whether the teacher has leanings a certain way, wants the kids to be thinking about something that you might not want your child to be thinking. Like, there's just no, this is what I tell people when we approach that. My daughter went to 1 year of kindergarten, half day kindergarten. And that was it. And we had this lovely little public school. It was a public school. Lovely teacher, young woman, loved the kids. The kids loved her. Everybody was super happy. And then 10 years later, after homeschooling my daughter for roughly 10 years, and telling her how bright she was, because she's exceedingly bright, but her mind doesn't work like most people's minds. She's very artistic. She's extraordinarily gifted in that direction. And so her mind thinks of things differently than the way my mind works, for instance, right? Just so I would tell her how bright she was. That's crazy. What you just said, that analysis of that thing, I never thought of it that way. I got to write that down. I literally would say that many times. And when she was 15 or 16, she said to me, "Mom, I just figured out why I think I'm stupid." I was like, "Really? What?" Kind of like where? And she said, "Well, in kindergarten, that one day they had us sight read our sight words in front of the class, and I was going to do mine perfectly. That was my plan because she's a perfectionist. She was like, I'm going to do mine perfectly. But Bobby went up first. Do you remember him? He was the smart kid. Yep, he was the smart kid. I totally remember. He was the really bright kid, right? He went up and did his perfectly. And then she got up there and she got stage fright because she's shy. So she didn't do hers perfectly. And the class laughed.
Ah,
And the teacher chuckled. And I guarantee you, I don't remember this specifically, but I guarantee you, the teacher said to me later that day when I came to pick her up, "Oh, it was so cute. She tried to read her sight words, but she kind of stumbled, and it was funny." We all laughed. But it was fun. It was good humored. But maybe work with her a little bit on her sight words, right? Nothing. It was a nothing burger. But that was the day my daughter learned that she was stupid. And so what I say to parents is, you will make mistakes, but they will be yours, and you will be able to be involved, to correct them, to apologize, to make them right. But if you are not there, you have no idea what someone else is telling your child, even tacitly, even unintentionally. You have no idea. Don't do it. It's not worth it. It's not worth it.
extraordinary. And for her to have carried that all those
You know.
years, but
Okay. I take it one step further. Think of this. Every time I told her how bright she was, she thought I was lying.
because it had been imprinted already.
Right? Because
My,
in kindergarten, there's a lot that happens in those years. Luckily, now we have Erica Komisar. We have Dr. Leonard Sachs, Dr. Erica
yeah,
Komisar,
yeah,
who
yeah.
are talking about the bonding that has to take place. And it has to take place because if you fail to bond with your mother, with your female parent, from 0 to 3, you will have struggles in your relationships for the rest of your life through adulthood, unless you go and unpack the struggles that occurred then, right? And Dr. Leonard Sachs is saying, hey, teenagers need their parents a lot more than we think that they need their parents. You know that the mantra in the culture is teenagers, they're so independent, they don't need their parents. I will tell you the number of times that people said to me, "Oh, you've got teenagers. Ooh, your hands are full," like it was some big burden. And here's the thing. Okay, no home is perfect. No homeschool family is perfect, but I never had struggles with my teenagers. Not even like it just because the bond is there. And so if I make a mistake, they trust that I will rectify it. And there's humility. And we learn these things as we grow together. We learn how to deal with each other and stuff. Before I started homeschooling, my oldest went to first and second grade. The attitude that he was coming home with towards his younger, stupider siblings, because that's what the school does. It has ageism that's baked in. If you're the higher grade, you crap all over the younger grades. They're just not as smart as you.
That's right. And there is a hierarchy that they aim to enforce because it serves them.
And the other thing that I would love to say to people, because this is something new that I've just started working on, and every classroom has roles, and children fill those roles. And if you go into any classroom, and maybe upper class is a little bit different because your classrooms shift so much, but in the grade school, you are with that class. That's your class every day for the whole school year, right? You go into any classroom, you go, who's the smart one? Oh, that's Bobby. Who's the dumb one? Oh, he's always picking his nose. Who's the class clown? Oh, that's got to be Jimmy. Like they know. And so your child will get assigned a role. And unless you move, and even if you move, like Like that, and that's a detriment. So my daughter assigned herself the role of the stupid one, not a stupid one, the stupid one.
But parents, as you say, have been the parents have been
Brainwashed.
indoctrinated
Yeah.
also to be too incapable, too ineffective, to the whole credentialism thing, to
Let me
play.
tell you a funny story. I was at an event, big event in DC for the inauguration. It was like a major event, right? And they had a Grammy award, multiple Grammy, platinum, whatever award winning musician who sang a song and then he gave a little speech. And he said, and he's like a one man band, like he's the guy. He's not the leader of it, it's him, right? And I don't want to name his, I don't want to like shame him or anything, but like, and he gave a speech and he's so proud because his son is following in his footsteps, studying music at some university somewhere. And I'm looking at him going, literally, you are the bomb.
That's
And your son is studying with some a-hole who couldn't make it in the music industry.
that's right.
So he's teaching university. Like, seriously, what are you thinking? What are you thinking? And you're pissing away, pardon me, but you're pissing away your relationship with your child. Like, you could have it all. It's so frustrating. But we've been conditioned to think that unless you went to school to teach the thing, you can't teach it. That's a lie. And this is what I tell people. Every child is his own teacher. I'm not saying you cut him loose and say, go learn. I'm saying nobody learns anything they don't first purpose to learn. Okay. And so you are going to teach yourself. Now, you might go to a teacher and say, help me learn this, but you're the one who made the decision to learn it. And we all know that kids sit in classrooms and they're lectured to, and it goes nowhere because they don't want to know it.
That's right.
And that's our schools today. So the
Just,
number one question in the classroom is, teacher, will this be on the exam?
oh,
Because I don't want
always,
to know what I need to know.
always, always. Yep, right. Otherwise, if it's not on the exam, there's no purpose to it. I want to touch on the morality issue in schools, and then I want to move on to your new venture. There's this idea that you can't teach religion in schools. You can't. Therefore, you also can't teach morality in schools. Therefore, you've removed one big piece of what had heretofore been a major part of education. But this idea that they're not teaching morality is completely counter to the reality, because they're teaching amorality. They're teaching immorality with the most tremendous vigor, and far more vigor than they ever addressed
Yes,
morality,
they're
right?
arguing for it at the Supreme Court.
Right.
And you think if they lose that case, do you really think that the pedagogy will leave the system? These people are, and I wrote an op ed on this. These people are so adherent to their religion, their ideology, okay? They are so adherent that the idea that parents who find out that Pride Puppy is in their school, the idea that those parents are willing to like fight to get the book out of the school so they can still send their children to that school? You got to be kidding me. No, everybody involved in placing that book in that school, everybody who proved it, everybody whose hands touched it, everybody who was involved should be fired immediately. That should be the argument before the Supreme Court. These people need to go. They are pedophiles.
And they would much rather have Pride Puppy and all these pornographic books. That was my dissertation, by the way. And there's a great, I'm sure you know, Karen England, who's working on getting porn out of the schools. And that then anybody's pushing back and saying, no, 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 we have to actually have porn in schools.
Yes.
And yet you can't have a Bible, you can't have, right, I mean, any Judeo-Christian anything, that's not okay. But Pride Puppy and all the horrific things that you literally, if you were to try to read them on some news program, they would shut the news program down
Yeah, no,
because
you're
this
not
is,
allowed to read them at the school board meeting
you're a
because it
terrorist.
conflicts with the obscenity laws.
Right,
But
right.
the obscenity laws don't apply in our schools. Figure that one out, Batman. Like that's just so so let me paint a picture. So when we first started our schools, our one-room schoolhouses, The idea was we collectively, the community collectively hires a teacher to oversee that the kids can get their Bible verses and learn their copy work, and the parents can still be working to feed the family. That was the whole idea. And they used the Bible because the Bible really is the best textbook of all. I will tell you that if you do nothing else but read 15, 20 minutes a day with your child, read them the Bible, keep them off electronics, you are on the path to freedom and wisdom beyond compare for that child. It's really that simple. I know it sounds ridiculous because we all went to school, so we were ingrained, brainwashed with this idea of what education should look like, but it doesn't look like school. So there's that. But initially, the idea was we collectively form a group to make sure that the kids are brought up in the knowledge and fear of the Lord so that they can be good citizens and good neighbors, good family people, good people, right? That was important to us. And if they got an education along the way, that was like a bonus. If it seemed that this child was like really good at math, then we would figure out what to do for him so that he could then go maybe to higher education, right? But even Abe Lincoln taught himself the law. He didn't go to school for it, and he borrowed the books to do it. So it's not like it's never been done before. This idea of training yourself. When you release the child from the onerous rigidity of the schooling of the schools, then the child is free to learn anything and he can excel at everything that he puts his mind to. Like Benjamin Franklin. Benjamin Franklin was a polymath, and so he was the most famous man in the world. He probably beat Michael Jackson, frankly, pre-internet. He was known on both sides of the ocean. He's the only guy who signed all four of our founding documents. The guy was an amazing, and he was a printer. Like he started as a printer, but he became this inventor person that all the scientists were like, "Wow, this guy's amazing." And guess what Yale did? They gave him an honorary degree, not because he graduated Yale, but because they wanted to claim that he belonged to them, right? So, and that's what's happening today is the universities are recruiting homeschoolers because those are the kids who think outside the box. They weren't raised in an institution, so they have a freer mind to problem solve than the kids who were raised in the institution who only know how to do what they were taught to do. And so that's another big difference between the schooling and the kids. But to go back to, I'm sorry, I got off track. So first it was to instill morals in our kids. And then and then Rockefeller came and said, well, wait a minute, we could just harness a whole workforce this way. Let's implement factory schools and we'll train them to move at the sound of the bell. And then we'll train them in obedience and compliance and conformity, right? And then we'll have a good compliant workforce that won't ask questions and will just do what they're told. And so that's what we ended up with. But we still had the Bible in the schools because morality was still important. Even to Rockefeller, morality was important because, you need to be a good moral person to keep your job, to do the right thing on the job, and to show up to work on time and all that work ethic, that Protestant work ethic that we've inherited and we're pissing away right now. In any case, and that brings us to around the 1960s when they were saying, wait a minute, we don't really want that stodgy old morality. Let's get rid of that because, education really is just purely academic. It's just the academic, it's math, it's writing, it's reading, the three R's that aren't actually R's. That's a lie. But they convinced us of that and they took the Bible out of schools and then they took prayer out of schools. Keep your God out of the schools. Well, then a different God moved in, the God of self, human secularism, the God of government, right? And so they told us there's no religion in the schools, but as you rightly pointed out, there's absolutely religion in the schools. They just don't call it a religion. Isn't that a sleight of hand? I don't have a religion. Yes, you do. You just don't cop to it. But you definitely have a religion because atheism is a much stronger religion than Christianity or Judaism or any of the other ones. And so that religion moved in. And now they've taken the academics out of schools and they just have religion. Did you see that? That's that sleight of hand that they did. And they shifted. And so in the state of Oregon, you no longer need to read or do math to graduate high school because it's not about the academics. It's about the indoctrination. And doctrine is religion, and they are putting their religion into our children. And it's a very dangerous, self-defeating religion. It's the religion of nihilism. It's the religion that children have no value. It's the religion of abortion as a holy sacrament. It's that. That's what they're teaching children. And so now we have the highest anxiety levels in our youth. In our youth. The kids who should be carefree without a worry in the world have the highest levels of anxiety because they are told every day they have no value. They're just a collection of accidents of nature. They are a chemical experiment. And by the way, the experiment was wrong. Your experiment is wrong. You're a different sex. You should cut off some body parts just to affirm the fact that the body parts you have are the wrong ones. Cut them off, which is completely illogical. And they're telling us follow the science.
And even if they're the right ones, you're toxic. There's a toxicity to your very being, right?
Yeah, no, it's true.
How is
And by
this
the way,
even
if you
possible?
believe that you deserve that body part, you're toxic.
That's
How
right.
dare you?
That's
Don't
right.
you dare use it.
It's a culture of nihilism. I would add shame, because you need to be ashamed of your own body, of your own self, of your own thoughts, but also, just to take it a step further, of whatever your parents have taught you, if they've taught you Judeo-Christian values and morality. But also, America is one of the most evil nations ever created on the planet. So every aspect of your identity is being undermined. How can this be a good thing at all?
It's a terrible thing. And my whole mission is to empower parents, pull your kids out of the schools. If you do nothing with them but give them the Bible and give them some good reading material and keep them off of the games, keep them off of social media, keep them off of the internet, you will be doing your part and they will love you for it. But you're not going to just do that. But honestly, that's what you do. You take them out and just start with that. Just start with that and start reading with your kids every day. Get a good classic book. Do not read current day literature because I can't vouch for all of it, so I won't vouch for any of it. But the classics typically are no-brainers. They're great. Kids love them. Kids love it when you read to them. Like, spend time with your kids. Do some reading together. Do voices. Like, have fun with it. Have your kid read to you. It's not more complicated than that. The math will come. The math will come. How much trigonometry do you remember? How much do you use in your life every day?
As far as reading, I remember several years ago, there was a study that showed kids, putting all the rest aside, kids who read with their parents in the evening or on a regular basis have a much higher correlation to success in school, but also in life. And various school districts, if I ran a school district and I had this information, I would say, okay, so are all these families able to do this? And if not, what can we do to help families who struggle with this? Families whose parents don't have time or they're illiterate or whatever. But that is exactly the opposite of what happened. Instead, the school said it's an unfair advantage. Therefore, parents who can do this, you ought not anymore
Do it.
read with your children. We know the path to success. We know what works. That was very obvious. Why would you do those things to undermine what works and undermine? We all talk about how children are sponges. Why would you not seek to give every child that? But that's counter to everything that they want to do,
So,
which is,
so,
again, cruelty and abuse.
so let me speak to that for just a minute because we are caught in a trap of assuming knowledge that we don't have. We assume schools are for children. We assume teachers are for children. We assume teachers' unions are a collection of people for children. We have the proof that all of those three statements are wrong. So we have to stop behaving as if they might still be true. When COVID hit and the teachers' unions petitioned to keep the schools closed in the hopes of better retirement things or some sort of climate change stuff, ridiculous things that had nothing to do with their own health, right? So the idea was their health and safety, because the teachers might contract COVID from the kids, even though there was no data to insinuate that that would happen. But that wasn't their argument. Their arguments were completely anomalous and so when we saw that, we needed to say, oh, wait, teachers' unions aren't for kids. Teachers' unions are not about the best educational outcomes. And then schools, the schools that stayed closed, like they didn't go out and find other teachers. They worked together with the unions to stay closed. And so they don't even believe that they are there to educate children or that their primary purpose is for the best for the children, because they would have figured out a way to get it done. We have to step away and go, so school is not pro-child. The school does not want the best for my child. Wait, okay, so let me take that information in and process. And the reason that I go through this on shows like yours is because we have not been taught discernment. We went K through 12. We were not taught discernment. We were taught acceptance. We were taught tolerance, acceptance, compliance. And I'm trying to urge people, no. The time for acceptance and compliance, that's past. That's past. Do not give these people grace. They've proven themselves. I got a video from a friend of mine whose kid goes to a DC school, like a really fine public school. And they sent out a video during COVID that was a compilation of all the different teachers doing short videos for their kids. And, most of the kids in the class in the school there knew most of the teachers. So it was like fun for the little kids to see their teachers. Elementary school, the principal started it off. Not a single person on that video, not a single person. And it was like almost 45 minutes of them talking directly to the kids. Not a single one mentioned anything about academics. Not a single one said, don't forget to read study your sight words, do your flashcards, memorize math facts. Not a single person said anything about anything academic. It was all wash your hands. Here's my doggy. Look at me. It's cold out or whatever. And I just go, okay, so can we just take from that their priorities are not about your child? And then when you know that the babysitter's priorities don't feature your child in the list, your kid didn't make the list, maybe don't turn your child over to that person. As good a person as they might be and as nice as they are to their dog, they don't give a flip about your kid.
It's a stunning it's stunning to discover this, but then once one discovers it, as you say, now what are you going to do with this knowledge? And people just plow ahead, not even
Well, I
taking
can't
on board this new
homeschool.
knowledge.
I can't homeschool.
Right,
I
right.
can't do it. It's that simple. Why not? I don't know. I don't know the first thing about homeschooling. Why would you say you can't if you don't know what you're talking about? Why not say, well, I can try? Why not say that? That's what I said. I said, I can try. I said to Kevin, I can try homeschooling. I think that even if I fail at homeschooling, our son will be better off. That's what
Or
I said.
better. It's still better. So tell us about your new venture, because I'm finding this absolutely spot on, fascinating, very empowering. The Coalition Against Government Overreach. You just
Well, I
started.
will.
What is it? What are you doing with this?
So, first of all, I would say that your input has been very beneficial. So, thank you for that. You were one of the first people that I reached out to because this is a brand new initiative. I'm just putting together so that we can have a unified voice, because school will never beat homeschool, and school is a tremendous grift. There's a great deal of money in school. You have to understand, we've enacted laws that they have to burn the textbooks every 3 years, because otherwise the textbook manufacturers might go out of business. That's a grift because the knowledge hasn't changed. Maybe a little bit of an update, but the knowledge hasn't changed. Not every 3 years. The grammar, English grammar, that stays the same pretty much year in and year out. We have a few new words here and there. I did write a book about them. But so So we have to understand that there's a tremendous lobby to keep the schools going, to keep the money flowing. And so now the thing that they've figured out is if we can divert the money to the parents can revert it back into the system. No, I've never put it that way before, but that's actually the way that they're thinking. And so they're saying, "Oh no, school choice is great because the parents get the money and the parents get to decide where the money is spent." But it's still government money. There's still government oversight of that money. And therefore, everywhere the money goes becomes a government controlled entity. So what it's doing is it's corporatizing all of the private institutions. So your private Christian school is so happy, oh, we're going to get government money now because the parents are going to choose to give us their government funds. They will be coming under the purview of the government now, and the government will be able to say to them, you have to teach LGBTQ because the Supreme Court ruled that that was perfectly legitimate. They haven't ruled yet. They might be leaning the right way, but there's no telling. There's no telling. And by the way, there's no just because the Supreme Court might shoot down Maryland doesn't mean somebody else isn't going to come up with some other scheme. And so this 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 is one thing, right? But there are other things, like in the state of Illinois, there's SB 2728, which is the government telling homeschoolers, you can't homeschool unless you have a college degree. You can't homeschool unless you have fire retardants installed in your home for, $4,500. You have to do this, that, and the other thing if you want to homeschool because we are the government. We have the authority to decide if you are capable of teaching your children, even though we've proven ourselves absolutely incapable. In Chicago, 0 children read at proficiency. But Chicago is deciding whether you are, accreditable to teach your children. And we're seeing more and more of this. And it's because there's a standoff. Homeschoolers are killing it. They beat every other institution basically. And so the government is saying, well, we can't have that. And they found different ways to reach out, even though they have no standing. They shouldn't have the authority. Like it's great that Trump is shutting down the Department of Education. It would be great if he was shutting down the funding of the Department of Education, but it seems that that's not what he's doing. And so we're just disseminating the Department of Education. We're just distributing it through other departments, and the funding will keep going. The grift will continue.
He's shutting down the Department of Ed, not the money, but now theoretically devolving control over education to the states. But you're wanting to address what's happening at all levels of government overreach at every level,
Yes, the states in
getting in the
particular.
way of, and states in particular. So you cite there's a few areas that this coalition, of which the American Freedom Alliance is a delighted member. We're very happy to be part of this. You suggest these measures, and I'd like you to talk about each one as I go through them. Putting faith, family, and freedom back at the heart of education. So this is back to what were talking about originally
Yeah.
with the
Yeah.
with the schools that worked.
You can't get great academics for a child without character building first. Because the children who are sitting in school being taught mathematics, most of them are sitting there going, why would I ever need this in my life? But if the child has good character, if they understand that their life has purpose, that their life has meaning, that there is a big goal that they need to accomplish, they will take whatever you tell them is important to them. As long as you're the authority, they will go, oh, I really need to learn that then. So faith and family, and of course family, because the number one metric for academic success is parental involvement, is the degree of parental involvement. That's the number one contributor to high academic achievement. So faith, family, and freedom. Of course, just freedom because that's what the nation stands for. And right now, our schools are involved in the slavery. They enslave us. And my proof of that is the number of people who say, well, I could never homeschool. Well, then you're slave. You've been enslaved. You're going to turn your pride and joy over to the system because they've trained you to think that that's the right thing to do. Yes, master. Yes, master.
And they've killed all three of these things. Faith isn't, they want you to have faith in nihilism, which is, I mean, it's the opposite of it. It's a contradiction in itself. But when you undermine our inherently human need for faith and belief and purpose, again, you're creating all kinds of mental issues, as well as you're impeding the learning process that you were, and obviously character building too. The character that you're building is nothing that anybody would ever have wanted for their children.
Well, I mean, if you think that schools are neutral, then explain to me why Christian children professing Christianity as their faith upon graduating high school, 80% of them lose their faith in college. It's not because atheism is right. It's because they've already been indoctrinated K through 12 away from their faith. Away from their faith. It's not neutral. It's not that there's no Bible in the schools. It's that there's anti-Bible in the schools. K through 12, 16,000 hours of anti-Bible,
Right.
day in and day out.
And with
So,
such confidence and conviction, this is the thing that always strikes me, the confidence and conviction that the secularists, the atheists, the amoral, LGBTQ cadre, who are, of course, the educational elites, the confidence with which they act is orders of magnitude greater than the confidence that anybody with Judeo-Christian faith will act with. Right?
well, they
It's
went to
orders of
school.
magnitude. So they know.
They know what they know.
They know what they know.
They know what they think they know anyway. Yeah.
But and it's a self-propagating thing, right? They can only be right if they can also indoctrinate and propagandize upcoming generations. You don't want
Oh,
anybody questioning, because you can't have them questioning, because then it undermines everything.
yes. Good point.
So there's this confidence all out of proportion to possibly how they actually feel. Possibly. The next point, advocate for increased parental involvement, including all local parent-led school boards.
Yeah, so this is the nugget, the brainchild of this whole thing that started there because I realized that it's going to be very difficult to eliminate schools, but we can give them a run for their money. Like we can really try to reform, and that's going to have to be parent led. And so we need school boards to be comprised entirely of local parents whose children are in that school. And I have a separate page that's an initiative that I'm circulating in the halls of government that stipulates that it's all parents with potentially one business leader from the community, because the community should be involved to a certain degree on the schools in the schools, but I don't believe they should be involved that much because we have to get the parents back in the schools. We used to have parents involved in the schools. It was a parent teacher partnership. And that was marginally successful. It was certainly more successful than the schools are today, right? So if we can at least back the truck up that far and have that where the parents are really, it's the parents' direction of what literature goes into the schools. And you'll have leftist parents or, LGBTQ, whatever, you'll have those people, but they'll have to get elected to the school board, which unfortunately we have a lot of school boards that are leaning very far into communism. But you will have some say if we turn it back over to the parents and not allow these, because there are a lot of school boards that are not parents. A lot of school board members are not at all parents. Well, what are they doing? oh, they're just trying to propagandize the kids. They're just trying to pervert the system.
They're the experts, though, Sam.
No,
Come on.
I don't like experts.
No. I know. I know. It's it's quite a sign of who we've become as a nation, I think, all of this. This is a microcosm of what's going on, but it's also the key to a healthy nation.
The only way out of the mess that we're in is to strengthen the family. And so getting families involved with schools is one step in that direction. And then when that happens, you'll see schools that do better, schools that do, we'll see the competition. And this is why we need to get rid of the Department of Education, even if the funding continues with the various programs. But you notice that the Department of Education is using their big stick, the funding that they control, to manipulate institutions like Harvard, right? And so if you're supportive of that, then you're supportive of having a Department of Education to begin with. I like it, but I struggle to support it because the next administration is going to go haywire the other way or whatever, right? So we need to get the hands of government out of these entities. But the government never should have been funding Harvard in the first place. Why is the government funding Harvard? They've got an enormous, they're not hurting. Like, why are we doing this with our taxpayer money? We need to return the power to the people. And we've seen this, and by the way, starts in the schools. This idea that government is the answer starts in the schools, and they've brainwashed us all to go to look to government. Can you fix this? Can you help fund this? Can you help me with my, just everything across the board, Medicaid, Medicare, Social Security. I'm not going after those. I'm just saying it's been this long, slow descent, let's say, into a socialist system. School itself is socialist. It used to be communal, where the parents, look, it's your kid. You should take responsibility for your kid. Help pay the teacher. Some people paid her in chickens. Some people, for the one-room schoolhouse. Some people paid her because they put her in their house. They let her live with them or whatever. It used to be that, which was a much more cohesive. The families were working together. This was the strength, the fabric of our society. And that fabric has frayed to no end. So now you've got somebody who's so grateful for the government helping her that she doesn't have to rely on the aunt to take care of her daughter after school for her. And so, my friend said to her, so let me just get this straight, because I want you to hear what you're just saying to me. You're so thankful that you can rely on government instead of family. And that sounds good to you. And she was like, oh, I never thought of it that way. We have to be very careful because we've been conditioned, as you and I have talked, right? K through 12 conditioned us to value money as the highest goal. And so the government is dangling these checks. Here's money. And we're going, yes, give me the money. That's the right thing to do, right? Go for the money. And we have to be very careful because our children should not be for sale.
What we're finding is all the money is buying worse actual education rather than better, obviously. But to so many, what's the answer? More money.
Oh, yeah. The answer is always more money
Always more money.
because it's a grift. I'm sorry. It's a grift. It doesn't take $8,000 to home educate a child. It doesn't. And so if you can be strong-willed and say, no, government, you can't buy me, because the government is purchasing not just the child, all the data on the child. For instance, those Christian schools that are taking the money, they're going to have to turn over their data. They're going to have to turn over their test scores. They're going to have to turn over their medical records. They're going to have to turn everything over to the government. And yet you're standing here saying, oh, I don't want the government involved, but you're supporting the money. Like, you got to make a choice. Do you serve money or do you serve God? Because if you serve money, then you're serving government. It's very sad.
What is the key takeaway about Coalition Against Government Overreach? And actually, I want to add this tiny point. Most people, when they talk about education and reforming education, talk about universities. To me, it's K through 12 and
Yeah.
even earlier, because that's when the die is being cast. And if you've inoculated, back when we believed in such a thing, if you inoculate your kids during K-12, K through 12, they will be far less likely to fall prey to all the lunacy of the Harvards, Columbias, the Ivies. They'll be strengthened against it. They won't be as vulnerable. Plus, you've kept the family intact in a the family bonds more intact. And you said before these bonds are fraying. I would say that they've been deliberately frayed
Severed.
on purpose. So K through 12, that is where these efforts are with the coalition. And what is the key you want to take for us to take away from what you're doing with CAGO?
Well, what I want to have happen, I want to see a shift in our culture where we trust parents and we trust children again. So we don't trust that children will learn. That's why we institutionalize them. And we don't trust that parents will parent. And that's why we tell them that they're worthless and they don't have any value and they can't actually have any say in the education of their children, right? And so I want to return to no, parents have value, parents know best, and we're seeing that in our health today, and we're seeing it in other areas also. But also, children have value and ought to be trusted to be able to learn independent of the structure of the institution, right? And I mean, it sounds so ridiculously like, of course, but no. And what I'd like to do with CAGO is get all the way to the White House with this. And it's because that can be precedential, not presidential, but precedential in setting the tone. And they ought to be setting the tone that we want parents involved in education, not just that parents belong, like we should tolerate them. No, we want them involved. And so to end it, I would love to point out, I just wrote another article on Elon Musk and the outrage of him taking his little boy to the Senate with him, taking his kids to India and meeting the Prime Minister of India. That's homeschooling. That's home education. That is parenting. That is right and just and true. And so any criticism is completely unfounded and they should be ashamed. And I would love to see more of that. And I think that he's on board with it because he's already lost a child to the woke mob, as we well know, to the woke mind virus, let's say, as he put it. And so he's keeping his kids as close as he can, it looks like, for good reason. Your children need you as a role model. Your children want to be you. Don't dissuade them of that. Encourage them. They will learn soon enough that you are a flawed person and they don't want to be exactly like you, and that's going to happen. But don't take that away from them by putting another authority that has actually less to recommend them than you do. We need to put faith in our parents again. They are accomplished individuals. So that's the sort of ultimate goal, but the near and important goal of KAGO is to hold the government accountable, to keep its hands out of what do we call it? Controlling, trying to keep the marionette hands away, because parents ought to be trusted. That's basically it.
It's absolutely great. And again,
So I'm looking for signatures. The website will be
yeah,
thereyourkids.org. I will
say
send
that
it to you
again.
so you can
It's
circulate it. It's thereyourkids.org.
they'reyourkids.org.
And I've got .com also. It will be attached to sorbostudios.com, and it'll be up and running fairly soon. We're still building it. Takes a little bit of time, as you probably know.
Indeed.
But I'm excited. I've got over 1 million subscribers already, or signers already, and we're growing, and we're gonna start holding the government accountable.
Love it. Great work, Sam. And it's
Thank you.
thank you so much for taking the time today. Really, and let's do this again. We have so much more to talk about. Terrific, terrific to talk. I really appreciate it.
This was
And
fun.
great, great work. Thank you.
Thanks so much. See you soon.